We can see that we're continuing in this series called Winning. Let me ask you, are you right now as happy as you want to be? Are you as joyful as you'd like to be? Somebody might go, absolutely. Others, maybe most others, no, I think I could stand a little more. Or I think I could stand a whole lot more. In fact, my heart is yearning for more. Is there a way that I could be a happier person? I could have more joy, especially being in Christ? And the answer is yeah. Now, we've defined winning here as basically loving God and loving people. It's known as the Great Commandment. When Christ was asked, hey, what's the greatest commandment? He says, well, here, let me just tell you, it's loving God with all you have and all you are. And he says the second is like the first. In fact, they're the same. It's loving people. When you love people, you love God. When you don't love people, you don't love God. They're not two different things. They're the same thing. And so we've then gone to the fruit of the Spirit. And actually, that is winning. Here we go. I thought. Let's see, here we go, yeah. And in the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5:22 and 23, it says that it has love, and then it has 8 more attributes. And I'd say see love not as it's love, and then it's joy, and then it's patience, but the following 8 really describe the number one, the biggest commandment, and that is love. And so as we love, we have joy, and as we love, we have peace, and those things. And if we don't have these other 8, or we don't have much of these 8, we don't have much love. We don't have the capacity to love. Although maybe we love someone, we're not loving someone. Maybe we love God, but we're not really loving God because these things aren't resident, or they're not there much. And so look at the fruit of the Spirit. I go in that manner, that really it's about love, and these are the things that make up love. I go, it's a common thing to love someone but not be loving someone. You know what I mean? I go, if you're married, you have children or grandchildren, of course you love them. But it doesn't mean that you're loving them or that you're always loving them. There's the thought, there's the feeling. But love, love without its expression is basically meaningless. And so it's not enough that I love someone. We need to be loving someone. There needs to be action with it, because it's easy to have a feeling, it's easy to have a thought, and we should. But the one attribute now I'm going to continue with, because I spoke about this last week, is this one called joy. And last week there was the definition of joy, and there's also the commandment to be joyful or to rejoice always. And so it's not just one of these thoughts hanging out there. God, Christ, has specifically told us to rejoice, to be joyful, and if we're not, in some way, we're not doing what God has told us to do. But some of you go, well, I would love to, I would like to, I'm not sure how to do that. And so I am hoping that this morning I can, help you a little bit with how to be more joyful or joy-filled. Part of the definition is joyful is being happy apart from circumstances. Most people, the world in its entirety base their happiness on circumstances. Now, how long do things have to happen in your day or your week before your circumstances aren't causing you to rejoice? Doesn't take much, does it? I mean, driving into church this morning, if you were someone else in the car, it may not have been a joyful experience. Maybe they told you something you didn't want to hear, or we're going to be late, we're going to be too early. Whatever it might have been. And so if you allow circumstances to dictate your happiness or your joy level, you won't be happy much. And you also have to have the happiness or joy when it comes to change, because everything in us or around us outside of God and the Word of God is changing. It has to be that way. It really does. And the more you try to keep things the same, you're going to lose a losing battle and be miserable. So how do I have this happiness in spite of circumstances? And how can I have this happiness in spite of change? And if you can't, basically you're living the way the world lives when it comes to happiness and joy, because that's one thing we all are shooting for. How can I be happier? You didn't get married because you thought the other person was going to make you more miserable, did you? That's not why we did this. No, you thought, I'm going to marry him or her because it's going to add to my happiness level. And if we're truthful, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And I said, for so many people, how is it that the person you thought you couldn't live without has become the person you can't live with? And it's true, oftentimes. So, this morning, getting on this, what we got, joy is Jesus, or joy in Jesus. So it is Jesus, but it's also found in Jesus. So, John the Baptist, he comes neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man, Christ comes and he's eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a gluttonous man and a drunkard, a friend of tax gatherers and sinners, meaning you guys can't win here. Because if you come and you're pious and you don't eat and drink much, and you don't hang out with a certain crowd, shame on you. You're demon-possessed, but if you come and you eat and you drink and you hang out with people you shouldn't hang out with, well, shame on you. So what they're saying is that either way, I don't care which way you go, we're not going to think highly of you. We're not going to respect you because you have an issue. Have you discovered in life, for some people, it doesn't matter what you do or don't do, or how many times you do it or how many times you don't do it, you can't win with them. If you do it, they say, aha! And if you change course to the other, they go, aha! And what do? You give up. Or you just live your life this way anyway, because it doesn't matter if you go this way or that way. They're going to criticize you. John the Baptist said, you're just uptight. Jesus, you're way too relaxed. You shouldn't have such a good time. I mean, if you were really the Son of God, you wouldn't have such a good time. You're supposed to be more serious. You shouldn't be so lighthearted. He enjoyed the people he hung out with, but he didn't enjoy their sin, but he could still enjoy them. In fact, he enjoyed these sinners much more than he enjoyed the religious leaders. He was their friend. One thing to be godly is to make friendships with people outside the faith. And sometimes what you find is that people outside the faith are easier to be with than people in the faith. It's just the way it is. So along with it is the accusation that you're a drunkard. The King James Version uses the word winebibber. You drink too much. You're inebriated. And we know that's not right. And I'm not so sure that he's accused of being a gluttonous person, you eat too much. Or you're a winebibber, you're a drunk because you drink too much because they hang out with sinners. Or could it be that they're saying that because they couldn't account for Jesus' joy in any other way other than you drink too much? I'm not an expert on drunkenness or drunken people. But I think that when someone has a whole lot and maybe too much to drink, they go this way or that way. And that is, some just get mean. And they want to fight everybody and tell everybody off and those things. And then others get really funny and nice and they laugh. They're the party. I don't think Jesus here is getting mean with people. He's not picking fights. Could it be that he has so much joy The only way we can think this is possible is you are drunk. But he's not. Have you ever been around someone, well, in some ways they act as though they're drunk, but they're not? And you think, hey, what's in that bottle you're drinking, or and you're kind of joking with them, but they have a kind of a joy that most don't have. And it's not that joy is all about laughing and smiling and telling jokes and those things. We just don't see Jesus in Scripture we don't read of him smiling or laughing. We don't read of him telling jokes. He's not walking. We don't see where Jesus is walking down the road to Jerusalem, and he says, "Hey guys, have you heard about?" We don't read about that. And they broke out laughing. But to think that he didn't have joy would not be true, because Jesus was the most joyful person ever to walk this earth, right? He was. Wouldn't he be, I don't want to use the word fun, but wouldn't you love to hang around him, not just for signs and wonders, but because of his joy? And maybe we hang around him enough, maybe some of his joy might rub off on me, and having been with Jesus, maybe I'll be a more joyful person. You ever thought that having read my Bible, having spent time in prayer, having come to church, maybe my joy factor ought to increase? Or having hung around other Christians, I think I should be happier now. I think my load should be lighter now. And the answer would be, yet it should be that way. I'll put it this way, and that is, it's common to criticize that which we do not understand. The reason they're accusing him of being a drunk because they didn't know what other category to put this in. You must be. We don't know how else to explain this. There's a second thing. So there's joy in Jesus, but something even just as great is Jesus' joy in us. And he says this in the Vine and the Branches passage. He says, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full." So part of winning is to have this joy that is transferred from Christ to us. We all want it. He says, this is why I'm teaching you guys. Not just then, but even today. So my joy, if where they're accusing me of being a drunkard, could be your joy. Here, I would love to transfer that into your heart and your soul. And we're sitting there like, well, then do it. I would love for that to happen. It's that so we are changed. See, we're winning when we are changed from the inside out by way of the fruit of the Spirit. And if that's not happening, we're not experiencing what I call the big win. And if we don't have a whole lot of joy, we can't love others much. We might love them, but we're not loving them. We can't much because joy keeps us from doing that. See, either your joy is spilling out on others, or you're trying to grab some joy from them. Because we're always seeking, we're always searching how to be happier. In the moment it leaves us, if we found it, we're out trying to find it again. Oh, it went away. Let me try to resurrect that. How long can you live well without being happy or not having much joy? How long can you live well? Basically, not at all. We're alive, we're searching, we're trying, but we know we don't have what we want, we know we don't have what we need, and we know somehow that Christ and Christianity should be providing this, and Jesus says, that's absolutely right. Oh, what I wouldn't give for my joy to be transferred to your soul. And that also, I love this, and that your joy may be made full. Not a little bit, every now and then, that our joy would be made full. Can I just add this? Always. And it can be if it's not based on circumstances. Here's the thought. Make the decision never again to settle for anything less than real joy. And I would add, and a lot of it. It's the way we ought to be. It's the way our churches should be. Why not here? Why not now? Because the fact that Christ wants His joy to be made full in you and in me is real today. Don't settle for anything less than real, authentic joy. See, you can try to make it happen. There's all this literature and stuff on positive thinking. Well, if I just thought positive, I don't know. Or I'm going to be happy today. I made up my mind, I'm going to grit my teeth, close. I'm going to be happy today. All right. If you've ever tried that, how long did that last? Well, maybe a little while. Then I got tired. And the old things kind of took over again. See, it doesn't take long for the weeds to overtake the garden. There it goes again. Knowing that joy is not something that only young people should have. They should. And we hope they have it, because if you don't have much joy as a young person, it might be tough to get as an older person. I hate walking around and seeing young people that are down and out. I mean, maybe occasionally, but it seems like their whole demeanor is one of sadness and disappointment. I think, well, unless they turn that around sometime, it's going to be hard. It's hard to shake off your childhood, isn't it? I don't care which way it was, if it was this way or that way. You could have had a great childhood and you were laughing all the time. You could have had a really tough one. Whatever it is, it's hard to shake it off. It's not impossible, but it takes time and energy and maybe outside help. All the better if you learn as a young person how to be joyful. I think this is true. To the degree that we enjoy God, we will have joy. And since He never changes, that means we can always have joy, because we can always enjoy God regardless of circumstances. Why do we settle for so much less than fullness of joy? I don't think we expect too much. I think we expect too little. The reason often we lower our expectations so that disappointment won't be so huge. I don't want to get my hopes up. Don't know if you've ever seen these people. Maybe you're one of them. I don't want to get my hopes up, right? Why? Because when reality kicks in, I don't think I can take the fall. So let me kind of level out. I don't want to get too happy, joyful. I don't want to get too sad, because that's not a good place to be. And so I'm just going to live in here. So I can't be disappointed, and yet I don't fall into depression. I'm just going to live with even keel. That's not how God called us to live. He called live in fullness of joy. And we should and get past I don't want to fall too much, so I don't want to get too high. Go ahead. Well, what if? I believe that when you walk with God, whatever happens in your life, God can sustain you and put you back together. Thank you, Mark. Come second service. Did a funeral a couple weeks ago up in Wisconsin. A good buddy of mine passed away. He's a retired police detective. Tough job. Makes my job look like nothing. He would face the most evil people like on a daily basis. Interview them and oh my. He went to bed on a Sunday night, January 26th. He never woke up. Here at 56, died of a heart attack. And you go, anyway, wife gets a message. I'm supposed to call her, and of course her heart's broken and these things. He's all set up for retirement, right? For years to come. And this thing hits. And so now she's having to deal with the loss of a husband, of a great man. And how can I get on out in front of this so my grief doesn't overwhelm me and destroy me? How do we live joyful with all these circumstances? With death and disease? And if not that, of a financial issue or a relational issue. To me, the things that often pull us down are health-related, money-related, relationship-related, or I'll throw in substance abuse. And often they all work together, because if you have someone dealing with substance abuse, guess what you also have? Someone who's having trouble relationally, someone's having trouble financially, and probably someone's having trouble with their health. And so it's not just one and not the others. They're interrelated oftentimes. And how do we get there? Here's what I call a joyful thought, not just positive thinking. Jesus addresses the 70 of his disciples, and it says, and the 70 returned with joy. He'd sent them out to go and do things in his name. Oh, but he's sending us out too, right? And the 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. I mean, that's a trip. I'm going to tell demons what to do. Knock it off. Shut up. Take a hike. Get out of here. Lay down and roll over, whatever it might be, and they had to do it. So we're coming back. Woo! Jesus said, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. See, I've given you authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall injure you, nothing can touch you. So you go out there with boldness, and you do what I've called you to do, and nothing can harm you, nothing can hurt you. It's like Superman. And because of that, they're going, woo, this is a trip. Let me tell you some stories of what happened, what we did, what we said. And they're all full of joy based on circumstances. Now, they're great circumstances. But Jesus has one more thing to tell him. He says, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this. Don't be joyful over that. I mean, it's a good thing that I've empowered you, but don't get all worked up about that. Rejoice that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. See, one thing you can see, when we have power and authority over all demonic activity, and we can dictate and direct, and they have to obey, you can see that, or the results of it. Names recorded in heaven. Well, yeah. See, the fact that you could tell the demon what to do, he goes, that's really not big of a deal. So what? Your name's recorded in heaven, that's a big deal. That's much more important than what I sent you out to do. This fact that your names are recorded in heaven should have an emotional impact on you. That's why it says, rejoice, be joyful that your names are recorded in heaven. This is what I call a foundational, joy-filled thought. Get happy, dance the dance, that this is your reality. We might say, oh yeah, I know. I get it. Next. And I saw a great white throne, and him who sat upon it. And I saw the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne. And books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from the things which were written in the books, according to their deeds. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. If you have been born again into the family of God, had your sin debt forgiven by Christ by way of the cross and his resurrection, then your name has been written in the book of life, the Lamb's book of life. And the one who has had their name written in the Lamb's book of life, their name will never be erased or taken from that book. It's a forever inscription. It says, by far, the biggest issue in your life has now been resolved. And this reality is meant to give us great joy every day, regardless of circumstances. I put it this way, and that is, don't rejoice in what you can do, but rejoice in what has already been done for you. You didn't write your name in the book of life. You had to make nothing to do with that. If your name is there, it's because God has called you before the foundation of the world. And anything you have, we all have issues, right? We all have stressors. We all have pain. Okay? We all have trauma. We all have grief. That's a part of living down here. But God says, even with that, circumstances, understand that you can live in this incredible joy because your name has been written in the Lamb's book of life. And to think upon this daily. Think upon this until you change emotionally. Now, yeah, I know, but I'm going to meditate that my name has been written in the Lamb's book of life. I'm going to tell myself that and remind myself that until something emotionally changes within me, because it's meant to. Jesus says, you be joyful that your name is written in this book. And that's a joy that'll never change, and that nothing can ever touch. When you find yourself lacking in joy, I go, return to this. started a new thing today. Lets me know that I'm supposed to be done. You don't know what to do. Well, that's one person. I didn't know it would do that. Listen. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having people over and having a good time. You should do that. There's nothing wrong with having a nice meal. Nothing wrong with going and seeing a Cubs-Reds game, right? And all these things. But let all these things just add to your joy. And don't make it that these things must give me what I don't presently have. Let the foundation, let your experience of joy already be happening, where I don't need this and I don't need that, but it's fine. It'll just kind of add to what I already have. But if you make this, I don't have any joy, so I have to do this and I have to do that, that's not where you want to be. Live in the reality that you have joy because your name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and you center on that and see what God does with that. To me, that's foundational to biblical joy. You can't get there without going through here. Enough of joyless Christianity, enough of joyless Christians. Don't settle for anything else, anything other than God's very best. Now, I ask you to pray with me. Lord, thank you this morning. That your joy, you desire to transfer to us. May we live in such a way that that's possible. You will not do that apart from us cooperating and submitting to your word and your will. It's the fruit of the Spirit, so it may take some time. It may not be instantaneous. We will know it's your work and not something we're trying to do on our own or resurrect. We'll let you take care of that. We'll be responsible in what we should do, and you'll take care of what we can. And with us, we thank you in Christ's name. Amen.